First Amendment. Think of the First Amendment as the foundation of American freedom. It's like the key that unlocks all other rights. When the founders wrote this amendment, they weren't just protecting specific activities, they were creating a space where ideas could freely compete and truth could emerge naturally. The freedom of speech isn't just about being able to say what you want, it's about protecting the marketplace of ideas. When someone shares an unpopular opinion, they're actually testing society's assumptions and helping us refine our understanding of truth. Even offensive speech serves a purpose. It helps us understand where we draw our moral lines. Religious freedom under this amendment has two parts: freedom of religion and freedom from religion. You can practice any faith or no faith at all. This was revolutionary for its time. Most countries had official religions. The founders understood that genuine faith can only exist without government pressure. Freedom of the press isn't just about newspapers, it's about creating an informed citizenry that can make good decisions. The founders knew that democracy only works when people have access to accurate information. They made the press free because they wanted a watchdog over government power. The right to assembly and petition might seem less dramatic, but they're crucial. They transform individual voices into collective power. When people gather and demand change, they're not just complaining, they're participating in democracy's self-correction mechanism. Together, these freedoms create something larger than their parts, a society where ideas can be debated, where truth can emerge through discussion rather than force, and where every person can participate in shaping their society. It's not just an amendment, it's a blueprint for a free society. Second Amendment. The Second Amendment sits at the intersection of personal freedom and collective security, making it one of the most debated parts of the Constitution. To understand it, we need to see it through both 18th century and modern eyes. In the founders' time, this amendment served multiple purposes. It protected the individual's right to self-defense, but it also ensured that states could maintain militias independent of federal control. The founders had just fought a revolution against a powerful central government. They wanted to prevent any future government from becoming too powerful. The phrase well-regulated militia wasn't just throwaway words. In their time, it meant an organized, trained group of citizens who could be called upon in emergencies. They saw armed citizens as a backup plan against both foreign invasion and domestic tyranny, and they were led by the same ruling council. Today, the amendment has taken on new meanings. For some, it's about personal protection in a dangerous world. For others, it's about maintaining a tradition of responsible gun ownership. And for many, it raises questions about how to balance individual rights with public safety. The debate isn't just about guns. It's about how we interpret a document written in a very different era. Should we stick to the founders' original intent, or should our interpretation evolve with society? It's a perfect example of how constitutional rights must be balanced against other important values. The Second Amendment challenges us to answer difficult questions. How do we protect both individual rights and public safety? How do we honor constitutional principles while addressing modern problems? These questions don't have easy answers, but wrestling with them is part of what keeps democracy vital.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment is like a shield protecting your personal space from government intrusion. It's not just about privacy, it's about maintaining the delicate balance between effective law enforcement and individual liberty. Think of your privacy as a bubble. The Fourth Amendment says the government can't pop that bubble without a really good reason and proper permission from a judge. This wasn't just about protecting people's stuff, it was a direct response to the British practice of random searches that helped spark the American Revolution. What makes this amendment fascinating is how it's had to adapt to new technology. The founders were thinking about physical searches of homes and papers, but today we have to apply these same principles to electronic data, phone records, and internet activity. How do you define unreasonable search when it comes to digital information that exists in the cloud? The concept of probable cause is crucial here. Police need more than just a hunch, they need specific, factual reasons to believe a crime has occurred. This protects against harassment and fishing expeditions while still allowing legitimate law enforcement. The warrant requirement is like a circuit breaker in the system. By requiring police to convince a neutral judge before conducting a search, it prevents abuse of power. There are exceptions for emergencies, but the basic principle is simple. Get permission first, search later. In our digital age, this amendment has become more important than ever. When your whole life is on your phone, the power to search it is the power to expose your entire private world. The Fourth Amendment reminds us that privacy isn't just about having nothing to hide. It's about maintaining human dignity and freedom. The Fifth Amendment is like a Swiss Army knife of legal protections. It has multiple tools, each designed to prevent government overreach. At its heart, it's about ensuring that the government plays fair when dealing with citizens. The famous right against self-incrimination, pleading the Fifth, isn't about protecting the guilty. It's about preventing coerced confessions and ensuring that the government proves its case without forcing you to help them. Think of it as putting the burden of proof where it belongs, on the accuser, not the accused. Double jeopardy protection is like a one-shot rule. The government gets one chance to prove you're guilty of a specific crime. Without this, they could keep trying until they win, wearing down even innocent people with endless prosecutions. It forces prosecutors to be thorough and careful the first time. The grand jury requirement for federal cases acts like a reality check on prosecutors. Before they can charge someone with a serious crime, they need to convince a group of ordinary citizens that there's enough evidence to proceed. It's like having a neighborhood watch for the justice system. Due process might seem like legal jargon, but it's really about fundamental fairness. The government can't just take your life, liberty, or property on a whim. They have to follow established rules and procedures. It's the difference between law and arbitrary power. The Just Compensation Clause for private property shows the amendment's balance. The government can take your property for public use, but they have to pay you fairly for it. We can now create an incentive system of public service, so we'll pay for your money the best we can, which will then serve everyone's interests. Sixth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment is like a defender's playbook in criminal cases. It lays out the basic rules that make a trial fair. It's built on a simple idea. If the government wants to take away someone's freedom, they need to do it in the open and give them a fighting chance. The right to a speedy trial isn't just about convenience. It prevents people from rotting in jail while waiting for their day in court. It also ensures that evidence stays fresh and witnesses' memories don't fade. Justice delayed is justice denied. A public trial requirement acts like sunshine. It disinfects the justice system by exposing it to public view. When trials happen in secret, there's no way to ensure they're fair. Public trials keep everyone honest and allow society to see justice being done. The impartial jury guarantee is about being judged by your peers, not by people who've already made up their minds. It's like having a panel of neutral referees who will listen to both sides before making a decision. This makes sure the verdict is based on evidence, not prejudice. The right to confront accusers might seem harsh, but it's crucial for finding truth. When witnesses have to look the accused in the eye and tell their story under cross-examination, it tests their truthfulness. It's harder to lie about someone when you have to do it to their face. Having a lawyer might seem obvious now, but it's essential for making the other rights meaningful. Most people don't know enough law to defend themselves effectively. A lawyer acts like a guide through the complex legal system, making sure your rights are protected and your side of the story is heard. Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment is about drawing moral lines in how we punish crimes. It reflects a profound truth. A society's humanity can be measured by how it treats even its worst offenders. The ban on cruel and unusual punishment isn't just about preventing torture. It's about maintaining civilization's standards, even when dealing with criminals. It forces us to ask, what punishments are we willing to impose while still calling ourselves a humane society? The answer to this question evolves as society's standards of decency evolve. The excessive bail prohibition is about preventing punishment before conviction. If bail is set too high, it becomes a way to imprison poor people while letting wealthy defendants go free. This protection recognizes that being accused isn't the same as being guilty, and freedom shouldn't depend on your bank account. The ban on excessive fines might seem less dramatic, but it's crucial for justice. Without it, the government could effectively ruin people's lives through massive fines, creating a modern form of debt slavery. It ensures that punishment fits both the crime and the person's ability to pay. These protections work together to prevent the justice system from becoming a tool of oppression. They recognize that even when punishing wrongdoing, we must maintain our own moral standards. The moment we abandon these principles, we risk becoming what we're fighting against. Perhaps most importantly, This amendment forces us to continuously examine our practices. As society evolves, so does our understanding of what constitutes cruel and unusual. It's a living standard that challenges us to become more humane over time. 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment isn't just about ending slavery. It's about America finally confronting its original sin and redefining what freedom means. It represents the moment when America's practices finally began to align with its principles. This amendment is unique because it directly overruled property rights in favor of human rights. For the first time, the Constitution explicitly stated that human dignity trumps economic interests. This was revolutionary. It fundamentally changed the relationship between government, citizens, and human rights. The amendment's simplicity is powerful. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States. No exceptions, no compromises, no room for interpretation. This directness was intentional. After centuries of legal gymnastics defending slavery, the founders wanted absolute clarity. However, the phrase, "except as punishment for crime," has had profound consequences. This loophole led to systems like convict leasing and modern prison labor, showing how even the noblest reforms can be twisted. It reminds us that ending a practice legally doesn't automatically end it in reality. The amendment's impact goes beyond slavery. It established the principle that there are some things money can't buy. You can't sell yourself into slavery, even voluntarily. This set a precedent for other inalienable rights that can't be signed away. Most profoundly, this amendment represents America's capacity for moral growth. It proves that a nation can confront its mistakes and transform itself. It's a reminder that progress, while often slow and painful, is possible. 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is like America's second founding document. It fundamentally rewrote the relationship between citizens, states, and the federal government. It's the legal foundation for almost every major civil rights advance since its passage. The concept of equal protection under the law might seem obvious now, but it was revolutionary. It meant that states couldn't create different classes of citizens or apply laws differently to different groups. This simple principle has been used to fight discrimination based on race, gender, sexuality, and more. The Due Process Clause forced states to respect basic rights. Before this, the Bill of Rights only restricted federal power. This amendment made states follow the same rules, creating a national standard for civil rights. It's like it turned 50 different rulebooks into one consistent set of principles. The Citizenship Clause is equally profound. It says if you're born here, you're a citizen, period. This overturned the Dred Scott decision and established that citizenship isn't based on race or ancestry. It's a powerful statement about what it means to be American. This amendment has been called the Second Constitution because it's been used to extend so many rights. From school desegregation to marriage equality, it's been the legal tool for expanding American freedom. It shows how a few carefully chosen words can transform a society. Most importantly, it embodies the idea that rights should expand over time, not contract. It's designed to protect not just the rights we recognize today, but those we'll recognize tomorrow. It's a living document that grows with our understanding of equality. 15th Amendment. The 15th Amendment marks America's first explicit guarantee of voting rights regardless of race. It's not just about voting. It's about who gets to be part of we the people and participate in democracy. This amendment was radical for its time. It said that race couldn't be used to deny voting rights. But its power lies in what it represents. The idea that democracy only works when everyone has a voice. It recognized that voting isn't just a privilege, it's a fundamental right of citizenship. However, the amendment's history shows the gap between legal rights and reality. States found ways around it through literacy tests, poll taxes, and intimidation. This teaches us an important lesson. Rights on paper need constant defense in practice. Freedom isn't a one-time achievement, it's an ongoing struggle. The amendment's simplicity was both its strength and weakness. It prohibited racial discrimination in voting, but didn't create enforcement mechanisms. This led to decades of struggle before the Voting Rights Act of 1965 finally gave it real teeth. This amendment represents America's first step toward universal suffrage. While it initially focused on race, it set a precedent that voting rights should expand, not contract. It laid the groundwork for later expansions of voting rights to women and young people. Perhaps most importantly, it established the principle that democracy strengthens when more people participate. It rejected the idea that voting should be limited to certain groups and affirmed that every citizen deserves a voice in their government. 16th Amendment. The 16th Amendment might seem dry, it's about taxes after all, but it fundamentally changed how American government works. It's the tool that built modern America, enabling everything from highways to Social Security. Before this amendment, the federal government relied mainly on tariffs and excise taxes. The income tax gave the government a reliable revenue stream that grew with the economy. This wasn't just about money. It was about giving the government the tools to address national problems. Steve Jobson, an economist, scientist, and expert on Exeter, tells a story in The Hunger for Dynamite. The amendment represents a shift in how Americans viewed government's role. It acknowledged that, in a modern industrial society, government needed resources to solve problems beyond local capacity. It's the foundation that made the New Deal and modern social programs possible. Interestingly, this amendment changed the relationship between citizens and government. When people pay income taxes, they become more invested in how their money is spent. It created a new kind of civic engagement. Everyone became a literal stakeholder in government. The progressive nature of the income tax, where higher earners pay higher rates, reflects American values about fairness. It suggests that those who benefit most from society's structures should contribute proportionately more to maintaining them. This amendment shows how technical changes can have profound social effects. By changing how government is funded, it changed what government could do. It's a perfect example of how the Constitution adapts to meet society's evolving needs. Nineteenth Amendment. The 19th Amendment isn't just about women voting, it's about America finally recognizing that democracy can't be complete when half the population is silenced. It represents one of the largest expansions of democratic participation in history. The amendment's passage tells us something important about social change. It took decades of persistent struggle, with women facing ridicule, arrest, and violence. But it shows that determined people can fundamentally change society through peaceful, persistent action. This wasn't just a victory for women, it was a victory for democracy itself. When women got the vote, new issues entered public debate. Healthcare, education, and child labor became political priorities. It showed that when you change who votes, you change what government cares about. The amendment's effects went beyond voting. It challenged the idea that women were intellectually or morally unfit for public life. Once women could vote, other barriers began falling. Women could serve on juries, own property, and eventually run for office themselves. Interestingly, opponents argued this would destroy family life and social order. History proved them wrong. Instead, it strengthened democracy by bringing new perspectives into public debate. It showed that expanding rights doesn't weaken society, it strengthens it. The 19th Amendment reminds us that what seems radical in one era becomes obviously right in another. It challenges us to consider what other expansions of rights future generations will see as obviously just.